To many people's surprise, the judge overseeing the Fulton County RICO case against President Trump, he just ruled earlier today that Fani Willis is not disqualified from the case so long as the man she was having an affair with steps down. Meaning that in order to remain on the case, all Fani Willis has to do is to fire Nathan Wade after she already paid him a cool $600,000 of taxpayer funds. Specifically, in this 23-page ruling that you can see up on your screen, well, Judge Scott McAfee did not really mince words, as he wrote that either Willis or Wade have to go because the entire case now has an odor of mendacity around it, meaning it reeks of untruthfulness. Here's specifically what he wrote. Quote, "This finding is by no means an indication that the court condones this tremendous lapse in judgment or the unprofessional manner of the district attorney's testimony during the evidentiary hearing. Rather, it is the undersigned's opinion, meaning the judge's opinion, that Georgia law does not permit the finding of an actual conflict for simply making bad choices, even repeatedly, and it is the trial court's duty to confine itself to the relevant issues and applicable law properly brought before it. Without sufficient evidence that the district attorney acquired a personal stake in the prosecution or that her financial arrangements had any impact on the case, the defendant's claim of an actual conflict must be denied." Furthermore, the judge wrote that questions are still up in the air regarding the timeline of the relationship, as well as the payments that Nathan Wade made when the two of them took flights and cruise trips together. However, despite those lingering questions, well, the judge wrote that he determined that there was not conclusive enough proof of the allegations against them. Quote, "Reasonable questions about whether the district attorney and her hand-selected lead prosecutor testified untruthfully about the timing of their relationship further underpin the finding of an appearance of impropriety and the need to make proportional efforts to cure it. Ultimately, dismissal of the indictment is not the appropriate remedy to adequately dissipate the financial cloud of impropriety and potential untruthfulness found here." Meaning that simply waving this away is not an option. And in explaining how, on one hand, he can find no conflict of interest, but on the other hand, he's still forcing either Fani Willis to leave or Nathan Wade to leave the case, well, Judge McAfee, he said that the public deserves to be sure that moving forward, there aren't any appearances of a conflict of interest. Quote, "As the case moves forward, reasonable members of the public could easily be left to wonder whether the financial exchanges have continued, resulting in some form of benefit to the district attorney, or even whether the romantic relationship has resumed. Therefore, the prosecution of this case cannot proceed until the state selects one of two options. Either the district attorney may choose to step aside, along with the whole of her office, or Nathan Wade can withdraw." Meaning, in practical terms, that despite Fani Willis, on the witness stand, under oath, saying that her relationship with Nathan Wade began only after she assigned him to be the special counsel, but then on the flip side, cell phone evidence appears to show otherwise, and despite the fact that Fani Willis's only evidence of reimbursing Nathan Wade for all these vacations and cruises is her word, because she apparently paid him back in thousands of dollars worth of cash that she happened to have laying around the house, well, despite all that, the judge found that she can remain on the case and that a conflict of interest cannot be proven. Now, as you would imagine, Trump's legal team wasn't too satisfied with this decision, with Trump's lead defense lawyer essentially slamming the ruling in a prepared statement. Quote, "While respecting the court's decision, we believe that the court did not afford appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade, including the financial benefits, testifying untruthfully about when their personal relationship began, as well as Willis's extrajudicial MLK church speech where she played the race card and falsely accused the defendants and their counsel of racism." Now, within hours of this judge's ruling being made public, Mr. Nathan Wade, he came out and he officially resigned himself as the special prosecutor. In his resignation letter, which was addressed to Ms. Fani Willis, here's part of what Mr. Wade wrote. Quote, "Although the court found that the defendants failed to meet their burden of proving that the district attorney acquired an actual conflict of interest, I am offering my resignation in the interest of democracy, in dedication to the American public, and move this case forward as quickly as possible." And with that, Mr. Nathan Wade is officially out, and he is no longer a special prosecutor in the Trump RICO case. In fact, as a response to his letter, Fani Willis released her own letter in which she spent about a full page singing the praises of Mr. Wade. Here is part of what she wrote. Quote, "I received your resignation letter, and I accept it, effective immediately. I will always remember and will remind everyone that you were brave enough to step forward and take on the investigation and prosecution of the allegations that the defendants in this case engaged in a conspiracy to overturn Georgia's 2020 presidential election. You are an outstanding advocate. Please accept my sincere gratitude on behalf of the citizens of Fulton County, Georgia, for your patriotism, courage, and dedication to justice." However, as sweet as this letter was, Well, Ms. Fani Willis is not out of the woods quite yet. That's because both President Trump as well as his other co-defendants, they can actually appeal Judge McAfee's decision and have the appeals court decide once again whether or not Fani Willis herself should be disqualified. And this process, it will of course further delay the case and make it such that almost certainly the case itself will be pushed back until well after the November 2024 election. Furthermore, besides the looming appeal on this matter, well, Fani Willis is also facing a number of other legal problems herself. For instance, just yesterday, Congressman Jim Jordan, he informed Fani Willis that, quote, she could face contempt of Congress proceedings for alleged noncompliance with a subpoena to produce records related to her office's use of federal funds related to her case against President Trump. The subpoena that Fani Willis has failed to comply with has to do with her allegedly smearing a whistleblower who spoke about her alleged misuse of federal grant money. Quote, the subpoena is the result of a Washington Free Beacon report that claimed that the whistleblower, a former employee in Mrs. Willis's office, was demoted after she warned Ms. Willis about her alleged use of federal grant funds that were supposed to be used for the prevention of gang activity, but were instead used for trips and laptops. And so there's that, coming from the federal level. The other legal problem currently facing Ms. Fani Willis originates in her own home state. That's because several days ago, the Georgia State Ethics Commission, they informed both Ms. Fani Willis as well as the public that a complaint has been filed against Ms. Fani Willis, accusing her campaign of benefiting from a Smurfing scam. Quote, the Georgia State Ethics Commission has notified Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis of a complaint filed against her, alleging that she violated the Georgia Government Transparency and Finance Act. The complaint was submitted last month by the president of Election Watch, a grassroots national election integrity watchdog group. Among other things, the complaint alleges that the Willis for DA committee was and continues to be the beneficiary of a campaign finance scam called Smurfing. Now, in case you've never heard of it before, Smurfs are a real thing. They're not just those frightening blue characters that live in the forest with the white hats. Instead, in the world of organized crime, Smurfing is a specific method of money laundering. It's when you take a large sum of money and you subdivide it into many smaller sums of money, which you can then use to avoid getting detected by the authorities. And then each individual who is given one of these smaller parcels of money to launder is himself or herself called a Smurf. That's the general terminology, and it's called Smurfing. And it's exactly this scheme that Fani Willis's campaign is being accused of benefiting from. Quote, the Election Watch team evaluated nearly 1,200 Willis donors who together gave her campaign more than $246,000. A Florida woman who is listed on the contribution report as a Willis donor, even though she denies ever contributing to the campaign, told investigators that she, quote, had no clue her name and address were being used. All right, if you're like me, then probably once a week, you stop for a second and you ponder to yourself, whatever happened to Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video that he made and I was shocked. The man is in his 80s, but he's still kicking butt, staying fit, working out, and staying active. What's even more shocking is that he's stronger, he can work out longer, and he even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. And he says he did this by making one single change. He convinced his wife to make the same change as well, and now she says she feels younger, leaner, and again, she has more energy for her grandkids all day long. Now, Chuck made an awesome video explaining everything. And by watching it, you might actually change your opinion about health. So head on over to chuckdefense.com/Roman and see it for yourself. Again, that's chuckdefense.com/Roman to see what Chuck Norris is up to. Now, of course, everyone in America is innocent until proven guilty, and this is only a complaint. We here at the Epoch Times, we did reach out to Fani Willis and her office for comment, but she could not be reached. And so that is the current state of the RICO case against President Trump playing itself out over in Georgia. Essentially, with the looming appeal of the judge's ruling, as well as the many challenges facing Ms. Fani Willis herself, the case is on a bit of a hold and will likely not resume until later this year, likely not before the start of the November election. And then, of course, if President Trump happens to win that election, the case will almost certainly be delayed by another 4 years, since Trump will not be able to be prosecuted while serving as the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America. If you'd like to read either the full 23-page ruling that came from Judge Scott McAfee, the letter from Jim Jordan, or the complaint with the Georgia State Ethics Commission, I'll throw all those links down into the description box below this video if you're the type of person that likes to dig into the weeds. And all I ask in return is that as you're making your way down there to those links, take a quick detour to smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this information can reach ever more people via the YouTube algorithm. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.